It is now 7:06. You have exactly 8 hours and 54 minutes to think about why you're here. Ponder the error of your ways.
1985's The Breakfast Club was a cult classic following the story of 5 misunderstood teens trying to survive a Saturday morning detention. However, the students in the film aren't truly representative of the populations disproportionately affected by school disciplinary action. School. Something most of us have had the privilege to attend. Centers where we learn more about our world and socialize youth into a good citizenry. With such high and important goals, everyone should feel welcomed and be treated with fairness and equality. But to some groups of students, they are not afforded such expectations. According to self-reported data obtained by the Government Accountability Office, Black students and students of disability were disproportionately disciplined regardless of type of discipline, level of school, poverty, or type of school. No matter the type of disciplinary action, African American students and students with disabilities are overrepresented in all disciplinary actions taken in schools nationwide. Are teachers and administrators really this biased? Are schools really this discriminatory? Recently, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights found that 43 school districts and charters had discriminatory disciplinary actions in subjective cases with children of disability and color. Subjective incidences are those that have the greatest input for bias and are usually focused around things such as bullying, disruptive/disorderly conduct, verbal abuse, and other attendance, threats, and intimidation. Specifically for children with disability, they are afforded certain protections against school disciplinary action if their actions correspond with their disability. However, yet, they're still overrepresented. With discriminatory discipline affecting student groups, specific punishments, like out-of-school suspension, can have a profound impact on a student's education. Suspensions have the effect of removing precious learning hours from that student's education and have been linked to lowering academic achievement, higher rates of truancy, or even a risk of future incarceration. Students belonging to groups that already face a large extent of systematic barriers to their success are further dissuaded from future academic success due to these punishments. Through discriminatory disciplines, students already at a disadvantage are thrown into a system that maximizes their chance of failure. But out-of-school suspensions have been proven not to affect a child's behavior post-suspension. This is a human rights issue. Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says that education should have equal access and promote tolerance. But due to policies enacted during the 1990s, many kids have had their opportunities and potential squandered on a system pervasive with bias. To get a better understanding of this, I spoke to an expert on children with disabilities.
My name's Erin Helner, and I work with autistic middle schoolers. I'm a paraprofessional, and let's see, I have experience working with at-risk kids and kids with learning disabilities and emotional behavior disorders. And for a few years, I worked with the courts in child protection and juvenile delinquency. And then for a short time, I was a treatment court coordinator. So all my experience has been with adolescents.
Last February, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights found that 43 school districts and charters have discrepancies in the punishment of particular student groups. How severe do you think the impact is locally, nationally, and internationally of the findings of the study?
Is that if children are disciplined for something that they cannot control, that it can affect them mentally, and if it happens persistently, then it can probably turn into something that would be a problem for their whole entire lives. Mm-hmm. So there's something called neuroplasticity that they just discovered recently, maybe in the last 7 years or so. And if you have enough experiences one way, your brain will wire that way. And even so, if somebody who is African American and being disciplined a lot, and people are telling them they're one way when they're not, they're going to believe they're one way because that's the way the brain works. So it can have a long-term effect, and it can affect a wide array of people.
Do you think there might be an explanation to why children with disabilities are overrepresented in disciplinary actions? Not their fault per se, maybe it's someone else's.
That working with kids with disabilities, it's really hard to be able to tell sometimes if they're being a certain way because of their disability or because of behaviors that they've learned that they need to unlearn and become a productive member of society. So it's kind of hard to tell the differences. I know that administration and stuff, they usually have training and they understand what the differences are, but at the same time, it can't be black and white all the time. So, and if you're talking about disabilities in terms of emotional behavior disorders, like basically their lives are very hard, and they've learned a lot of bad behaviors, and they've had adverse childhoods, and they're responding the only way that they know how because they weren't taught correctly. So I don't know. Like I believe more in a reward system than punishment systems. And so.
All right. What do you think can be done to resolve that discrepancy then? What can be done by students, teachers, and parents?
Well, education is huge. Teachers do get a lot of training and stuff, but there's so much new stuff out there right now that, it needs to be ongoing. There needs to be, people that come into the schools and can help, update teachers and whatnot. Parents, also education. I think parent education is huge. We've all just done what we've known, like how we were parented. But now we actually have evidence-based practices that should be used. I thought I was a pretty good parent too, but once I started learning all this stuff, I was like, whoa, I'm doing a lot of things that could be hurtful to my kids in the long run, even though they might help in the short run, So I think, education is huge. Another thing too is I think that everybody needs to look at themselves and really, without being defensive or upset, if they find something that they think that they're doing wrong, instead of trying to come up with excuses for it, to maybe actually look at themselves and see what they can do better, because we can all do better.
Any closing remarks?
An organization that I think that teachers and parents should follow is MACMA, which is the Minnesota Association for Children's Mental Health. They constantly have trainings that you can take about new and updated information, research-based, evidence-based, everything, to help you out when you're having problems. Just read. That's a big thing. Read and learn and learn about yourself and be self-aware, and I don't know. No, that's it.
What can be done to resolve these issues? First, we must treat students with disability in color and people with disability in color with more compassion in our daily lives. Try to educate ourselves on the issues that they face, and then try to look to ourselves, see our own biases, and try to overcome them. What can we do for a governmental level? For that, we can pressure school districts to have smaller class sizes and promote a professional development that helps ensure that teachers get the necessary bias training to try to curb disciplinary discrimination.